Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this NView live LinkedIn session on harnessing digital technologies for environmental sustainability. I am Virginie Giraud, and I lead our NView Smart Weeding System rail services to keep railway tracks weed-free for passengers and workers' safety. I am based in France, in Lyon. I'm very pleased to have with us today for a great sharing session our speakers. Let me present them to you. First, we have Erica Fitzpatrick from the US in Eastern Oregon. Erica works with her husband, 2 sons, and extended family on a 4th-generation ranch. And she owns Misa Communications, a media company focused on serving organizations at the intersection of ranching and natural resource use. Erica sees invasive annual grasses as one of the largest threats to the sustainability of ranching and has a deep interest in helping tackle the problem in her area, using all available means. Then we have Graham Owen, based in the UK, working for the Public Rail Network Railway Company. Graham is a senior engineer, drainage and line side, involved in seeking innovative solutions and ways of working that embraces a balanced approach to tree and vegetation management, exploiting the benefit of our green infrastructure and limiting the risk to railway operations. And finally, we have Harry Quick, my colleague at NView, based also in the US, in Colorado. Harry is an NView Senior Science Fellow and Regional Stewardship and Development Manager. His industrial experience includes stewarding and developing products for rangeland restoration, forest management, industrial vegetation management, and also crop protection. His present focus is on protecting and restoring Western US rangeland devastated by the invasion of exotic annual grasses. Thank you all for being with us today. We will discuss how digital technologies can work hand in hand with herbicides to advance healthy environments. Indeed, herbicides are extremely effective at controlling invasive and unwanted weeds and grasses to improve biodiversity and reduce the risk of wildfires. But their efficacy is amplified when used in tandem with digital technologies. Dear audience, please feel free to share with us your questions in the chat box for an even more lively session. Today, we'll focus on 2 areas. Firstly, restoring productivity and biodiversity on Western US rangeland, devastated, as we said, by invasion of exotic grasses. And secondly, the problems created by weeds and vegetation growing along railroads. So let's start with the Western US rangeland. Firstly, with Harry to provide a brief overview of what is happening across the West, and then with Erica to give us the perspective of a rangeland owner. Harry, what is happening on the Western US rangeland?
Well, thank you, Virginie. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about this very serious problem. Western US rangeland is composed of a very diverse perennial system of forbs, grasses, and shrubs. And it's under attack by exotic invasive annual grasses. These are winter annual grasses, several different ones, the most common being cheatgrass or Bromus tectorum, also known as downy brome, and there's several others. What these exotic annual grasses do is germinate in late summer into winter, and then towards the end of winter, they start this very rapid vegetative growth. And they steal all the nutrients and all the moisture that would go to the native perennial systems, which start to come out of dormancy later. And, these are typically pretty arid systems to start off with. So the impact of the annual grasses taking all this moisture and all these nutrients is to put that native diverse perennial system essentially into a state of permanent drought. And then, of course, every year these exotic annual grasses start to senesce in late spring into summer. They develop prolific numbers of seed. The seed is added to the seed bank, and then they start to senesce, and they add fine fuel, which creates an increase in wildfire. And that fine fuel, that brown fine fuel, is being added at this exact same time that wildfire threatens. So we're seeing immense impacts of this. With the annual grass invasion, we decrease diversity. We degrade habitat for wildlife and for pollinators. We lose soil carbon. And we also lose productivity when it comes to livestock production because the annual grasses do not have the same nutritional value over a grazing season than our native perennials have. And there's recent research that says we just in the Great Basin alone, we're losing 240,000 hectares a year to annual grass dominance. And that's a stable state of annual grass dominance. That's over 500,000 acres. These are not coming back on their own. They permanently lost it unless we spend tremendous amounts of money to try and get them back. And what's worse is we have some newer invasive grasses like ventonata and medusa head, which are even worse because they are less palatable and have less nutritional value even than the downy brome or cheatgrass that I mentioned. Luckily, we have a new solution to control the annual grasses. It's called Rejuvra. It's a pre-emergence herbicide. It's highly selective because it controls those germinating annual grasses without impacting the native perennial population. And it also provides up to 4 years of control with one single application. So that allows the native perennial plants to recover, regain all those resources that they lost. And we can combine our herbicide solution with a digital solution, RangeView. And with RangeView, we can use remote sensing, identify where the infestations are. We can then use targeted treatments in the most important places. And together with Rejuvra and RangeView, we have a really good opportunity to fight back against this invasion and help save the rangeland that we still have that is not degraded. So once we do this, the multiple benefits, for example, the efficiency of livestock production is improved. We increase diversity, we increase wildlife and pollinator habitat, and we also decrease the threat of wildfires. And very recent research is showing that these annual grasses are really reducing soil carbon stocks in quite a significant way, which is just another really important reason to stop this invasion.
Thank you, Harry. Thank you very much for this complete overview on how these invasive species really damage the biodiversity and also the productivity. So now let's go to Erika. Please talk about the impact of these annual invasive grasses on your ranch and how control methods and digital technologies combine to provide an effective solution from your point of view.
Yeah, unfortunately, the picture that Harry just painted is a very accurate one to what we're experiencing at a ranch scale. And so all of the things that he described, whether it be fire, monocultures, and just that general transition away from our native perennials to these really damaging invasive annual grasses, is what we've been living. And so we deal primarily with a really particularly aggressive invader called medusa head. And it's almost entirely unpalatable to livestock and wildlife most of the year. There's just a very short window of time in which it can be grazed. And so as it crowds out other forages, we're just transitioning to a landscape that's almost unusable and certainly not good for the ecosystem and the wildlife that depend on it as well. So for a while now, it's felt that this problem has been pretty daunting and almost hopeless. And recently, Rejuvra, as Harry mentioned, was approved for use in our state, I think just 2 years ago. And we were really excited to participate in some treatments and have been very, very excited about those results. We're seeing wonderful transition back to our perennials being strong and vibrant, and the elimination of those annual grasses. This is a really exciting time. But there's another challenge that we face, and it's that we're dealing on really large, vast, and rugged landscapes. This ranch alone spans about 250,000 acres. Ranches in this area, really depend on large landscapes to be able to sustain these livestock herds, because it is an arid landscape. And so getting a sense of what's going on at that scale is really challenging. And to do it solely on the ground is really expensive and time consuming. And so these digital technologies, specifically remote sensing and tools like Enview's Range View, are helping us get an accurate sense of what's going on the landscape right now, create areas that we want to target and the strategies that are going to be economically feasible and also have the highest chance for success, and then being able to monitor those results. So these digital technologies are really essential, and we've been starting to work with them and use them and see great results.
Thank you, Erika. Very exciting to see that, yes, we have problems, but we have also relevant, effective solutions, both on products and digital, to overcome them. Fantastic. So now, let's talk about weed and vegetation control on railway. So weed control is mandatory on railways, and for many reasons. First of all, for safety, to avoid any accident linked with deeply rooted invasive weeds. Also, to prevent wildfires at summer with very dry vegetation. Controlling weeds help as well to maintain the rail ballast stability and avoid high maintenance costs to replace it. Our Enview smart weeding system technology enabled to detect the weeds and thus to spray product only where needed on detected weeds. And coupled with a GPS, it allows a great respect of restricted areas, cutting off the nozzles. At Enview, our SWS technology delivers as well digital data report on all field operations, offering a great transparency to our customers and also society. We're able to give precisely what product has been sprayed, how much, and where with GPS coordinates. We can thus trace that restricted areas have been fully respected. Graham, please talk about your challenges with vegetation in the UK and how control methods and digital technologies combine to provide an effective solution.
Thank you. Yeah, I think just start with so vegetation management. It's really important to me from with my background in environmental and tree management, is that we think about vegetation management and tree management in terms of what benefits it can provide, and also balancing that with the negatives, I guess, and the disbenefits that vegetation and tree management can have on a network like what we have in the UK with the network of railways that we have, and to identify those benefits and also those negatives or those disbenefits. It's key that we understand what is going on the line side, what we have, what the habitats are, and the biodiversity that we have on our networks. And to do that, it's really important that we have systems in place where we can identify our line side, and those are through inspection. And traditionally, we've done those inspections on foot. Over many years, we've been collecting our data about the line side and our vegetation and our trees from people accessing the railway. But obviously, as we move forward and we are looking to do digital transformation on the railway, we're looking for new technologies that can help us with that decision support. So we are in a very early stages at the moment in doing embracing in technologies that can help us with that digital transformation. And those technologies are from remote sensing, from our aerial survey data that we're collecting. We're also looking at how satellite data can help us with detection of vegetation and trees, and that will help us make better informed management decisions. Generally, our management decisions are very much based on chemical applications. We also do mechanical interventions using machinery for larger vegetation and tree management projects. And also we're still undertaking motor manual activities where the smaller cyclical operations are done by our staff using smaller handheld machinery to help us with vegetation management. And going forward, we're looking at technologies that can help us not only with detection and decision support to help us with recognizing where we might have significant problems, but also recognize areas where we may not have a problem and we might not have to do so much intensive intervention. But we're also looking at technologies that can actually help detect and also provide the intervention solution, if you like. So, which is a quite exciting projects that we're looking into there as well. So yeah, we're embracing the digital technologies to help us identify and make decision support on the railway. Going forward, I think we would like to move from decision support to decision making, where we're able to identify locations of higher risk, where we need to focus our activities, and also locations of lower risk, so that we can de-scope our activities in those locations, so that we have a more focused approach and a more efficient approach using remote sensing technologies to help us do that.
Many thanks, Graham, to see everything you are already doing in the UK and the great ideas you have also for the coming years. So, dear audience, I remind you can ask a question in the chat box for the Q&A coming very soon. Just after this question, to give us just a little bit of perspective. So in the future, how will digital technologies help you even more to overcome your vegetation issues and advance healthy environments? Erika, how do you see it for rangeland?
We are really excited for the advancement in remote sensing and satellite imagery, and maybe that being paired with AI technologies, because right now it's not perfect. It's good and it gives us an idea, but you still need to ground truth that, which is a good practice in general. But again, it goes back to being fairly time consuming, and there's areas on this landscape that you can't even really access outside of maybe a horse or some ATV. And so we're excited to see that technology continue to develop. There's all sorts of other exciting digital technologies, but I think that's where at least my focus is for now, and where I see a lot of exciting things happening.
Thank you, Erika. Indeed, going through the satellite is really very exciting. Graham, is there anything you would like to add for the railways, for really the future, the long-term view?
For us, I think, so from digital tool to end user interface is really important, and there is obviously a a delay in getting digital data into the right format and to tell the right story through to the end user in a really efficient way. I think that's really important. So our goal, I guess, would be real-time information feeding from whatever system it is, the remote sensing system that is collecting that data, to be available to the end user as smartly and as efficiently as possible. I think that's the area that we would like to focus on going forward, and also how we incorporate all the remote sensing methodologies, if you like, or ways that we collect data into one platform for a decision maker to make the right decisions from that, from all those data those sensing methods, if you like. So we talked about I guess what we've already gathered from people visiting the railway. We know that drones can collect really high resolution imagery and data. We have helicopters and fixed wing aircraft that are collecting data. We also collect data from trains, as you know, and also we're looking at satellite technologies as well. And the resolution or the quality of the imagery or the sensing tool is also important and can change with the different types of technologies out there. So I guess it's how we combine all those really good things, because we would probably want to use most of those things, combining those into a really smart way of presenting that to a user, if you like. So that's the important thing, I think, for us.
Thank you, Graham. And you, Ari, from your view on the field that you serve every day, how do you see the future?
Yeah, so we have a lot more than just annual grasses that are impacting our rangeland. Woody brush or tree species such as juniper trees, or mesquite trees, Prosopis glandulosa, are really invading in a very big way across the whole western USA. So we need digital applications that can broadly identify problematic species on the ground using remote sensing, machine learning combined with artificial intelligence. And with this information and a geospatial system, we can identify areas at risk of invasion and newly invaded areas. And these are often the areas that can be most effectively targeted to stop this ongoing spread of these undesirable species. Once we know where the invasion front is, and once we know what areas are at greatest risk of invasion, we can then really target our treatments to provide the greatest benefit. And then further use of the digital platform and would include grazing management, because after you've recovered your grazing lands, you then want to manage them appropriately to maintain that state and don't revert back to an undesirable state where invasives start again. And you can also monitor over time, monitor the outcomes of any treatments you do, also monitor the responses of the desirable species, and then take timely action, because these it's never a one and done solution. When species start to come back, you need to be able to know they're coming back, and you need to be able to tackle them. So it becomes, and then once we have documented outcomes, it becomes possible to create verified and trustworthy environmental assets. For example, reduced emissions and improved biodiversity. And all of this facilitates more sustainable beef production, for example, and it also improved management of natural areas. So I see a huge role for the combination of the treatments to control the invasive vegetation and the monitoring of outcomes, not only in terms of control, but all the environmental benefits that flow from that, to participate in the market for environmental outcomes, improved environmental outcomes.
Thank you, Harry. On my side, I can say as well that at NVU, our innovation team is working on developing some weed recognition to identify precisely the noxious species to even better control them. For instance, we want to detect ambrosia that cause health respiratory problems here in Europe, to be able to monitor the spread out and go on the field to eradicate it. Another topic we are working on is this predictive weed control maintenance on railways. Like you said, Graham and Erica, we like to combine all the data we are collecting on the field with the trains and also data coming from satellites to really know where to pay a particular attention where the weeds are before we go on the field to have even a better operation down on the field. Okay, so thank you very much for this first part of this session. Now, let's have a look at the questions from the audience. So we have one that is for you, Graham. You talked about digital transformation on railway and explained that remote sensing is to be used more and more amongst other pieces of technology. What technology do you particularly believe in to transform your work?
Yeah, good question. So I think what's been really powerful over the last probably 5 or 6 years is the adoption of aerial survey technologies, and our first steps into aerial survey and remote sensing was probably back in 2014, using our national aerial survey colleagues to undertake a aerial survey using LiDAR technologies. That helped us with items like asset positioning, railway infrastructure positioning, and also, of course, for us to be able to detect and survey and locate and create an inventory map, if you like, of our line-side trees and vegetation. So that was our first key step. We are looking at technologies also, or using technologies at the moment to help us identify health problems with trees and vegetation, using hyperspectral cameras that is adding benefits to our inventory, our tree inventory at the moment. So remote sensing technologies are really important to us. We are also looking at satellite data and how satellite data can provide us a more repeatable, regular survey but maybe of a different quality or a different resolution. So yeah, I think those are really important. And like I say, we're probably at the early stages of identifying the benefits of remote technologies, but our digital transformation is in flight, and it will be our key goals going forward is to enhance those technologies and those systems that feed off from that.
Thank you, Graham. Erica, I see a question for you. Are there any other things you would dream to with the satellite imagery? Maybe the cattle management, for instance, or anything else of that kind?
Yeah. it may be a slower adoption of that process, but I can see, uses for monitoring water sources as being really useful. Because a lot of times, much of a rancher's time is spent, going out to check that water source that's many miles away, whether it's a reservoir or a water tank or something along those lines. So if there were, and I know there already exist, some systems in place to manage and to monitor those from afar, but I can envision the easier that gets, I imagine that'll be a feature that a lot of people would find a lot of use in. I know we certainly would. I think another piece of it could be, monitoring where cattle are at different times. And I see that piece as also being a bit slow to be adopted, but I can see uses for that function being built into tools like RangeView, where you can understand kind of how cattle, because you understand it to an extent, but on a daily basis, really knowing exactly where those cattle are grazing and understanding their patterns could be pretty useful.
Thank you, Erika. Harry, I see a question for you. Can you tell us a bit more about the impact on biodiversity? It seems to be a bit paradoxical to use chemicals to restore an ecosystem. Are there other examples of ecosystem restoration that you are targeting?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. We have to think first about what the annual grass invasion is doing. The annual grasses are outcompeting native vegetation. They're outcompeting everything from native annual forbs, to the perennial grasses, the perennial shrubs, and especially when you get wildfire added, because they do increase the wildfire frequency, you can transition very quickly to what is almost a monoculture of these annual grasses. Your biodiversity has gone. So we target areas that have not been totally degraded yet. So there's still viable native perennial populations to respond to the resources that are freed up again after the annual grasses are removed. And we've done some very intensive monitoring along the Colorado Front Range, for example, which has some highly biodiverse sites. And on those sites, we see that the native plants start to come back very, very quickly. Even native annual plants start to come back the year after treatment, and you get more and more as time goes by. We have a very good published study showing the amount of flowering plants, the diversity of flowering plants that come back after these treatments, which is really great for pollinator habitat, for example. And so all of this doesn't happen when you have the annual grasses there, because they're just suppressing all of it. So we've now taken this much further, and we're actually monitoring operational sites across the West. And we have a methodology that we're using with transects and quadrats, and documenting all the species on a site change over time after the treatments. And we see really great results. I mean, we see one of the standard things we see is a shift of the population of plants to one that's more dominated by desirable species and much less dominated by the undesirable species. We actually have a aspiration within our company to increase biodiversity by 15% on over a million acres, just as part of our environmental stewardship. So we're doing a lot of work to document that. And we're also planning to do additional work with universities to monitor the biodiversity outcomes.
Super. Thank you, Harry. Erika, I see a new question for you. Have you been able to see a direct impact of the annual grass infestation on the productivity or health of your livestock?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't have hard data points right now with me on that, but the the fortunate or unfortunate thing is on our place, on our ranch, we've got kind of the full spectrum. We've got pastures that are almost completely, monocultures of an invasive annual. And then we've got all the way through to pastures that are more, pristine and that strong perennial bunch grass. And, those monoculture areas just simply cannot sustain cattle outside of some winter months and with a lot of supplements. And so, that because of that, looking at the two extremes, in the pastures that where both exist, they're absolutely not selecting for those invasive annuals. And you can see that very clearly if you just sit there and watch them graze. You can see that they are going to select those plants that have some nutritional value and that they can actually digest and are palatable. And so absolutely, if we were to continue on this trend, the land simply cannot sustain the number of cattle that it could on healthy, vibrant, ecosystems.
Okay, very good. I see a question for you, Graham. How you have measured the impact on the environment, on the biodiversity, on all your activities, and how this measurement is embedded into your digital technologies?
Yeah, thank you. We are using satellite imagery to identify the different habitats that we've got along the line side. That is combining with our on-foot surveys that are, I guess, closer to the habitat alongside the railway as well, and that's providing us with a very high level overview of our inventory in terms of what habitats we have, and also using satellite data to do that, we're able to identify change detection over a certain period of time to enable us to understand whether our activities on the railway are having a significant benefit or disbenefit in terms of the interventions and activities that we do. So those are the technologies that we're embracing just now on the UK network.
Great. Thank you, Graham. Erika, another question for you. How do you see the adoption process or acceptance of the digital technologies among the rangeland managers, the ranchers? Are you a front runner, or are you part of the great community moving to the digital technologies?
That's a little hard to answer, of getting an accurate sense of that, because you understand in your conversations with friends and neighbors kind of where they're at on it. But it, like anything, I think there's early adopters and there's people who jump on with any new technology very early and very quickly and start to learn how to use it. And I would say, the ranching community might fall in general as a whole a little on the slower side of adopting change. I mean, that's why a lot of us live in the middle of nowhere and do what we do and choose this lifestyle, because I think we have to remember that, a large part of ranching is the lifestyle component. So I think it's a matter of how invasive it feels, to be completely honest. If it feels as though, all that you're doing is exposed to the entire world, I have to be honest, it's going to be slower to be adopted. But when we can really look at, the benefit that it provides, and I think there are a few examples. I don't know how many people would be familiar with just the app that was designed for hunting that many ranchers use of OnX. I know most of our friends and neighbors use that app, and I understand that there's more and more powerful tools far beyond that app, but it's a kind of opens the door into understanding what might be possible in making everyone's life a little bit easier. And so I think, there's going to be people that fall on all sides of that equation.
Great. Thank you, Erika. Another question has come. why don't we use only alternatives like e-weeding or hot water, and we still use chemistry? So maybe I can start answering, and then I will give you the floor, Graham, also from your perspective. So what I can tell you is that we looked at it deeply with our innovation teams. And we have not selected the hot water because it's not efficient enough. It's just temporarily damage the leaves of the plant and don't kill the roots. So it means that especially at spring, we will need to come every month on the rail tracks. And with the busy lines we have here in Europe, this is just not possible. Regarding electric weeding, this is an efficient technology as it kills the roots, but we have not found the right way to make operations with it because the speed is very slow to apply this technology, less than 5 kilometers per hour. And again, we cannot close the busy lines in Europe for the weeding operations. We need to integrate our operations in the existing flow, and we circulate rather at 50 kilometers per hour. So for the rail tracks weeding, we continue to investigate with our innovation teams. We continuously monitor and try to see with the research center what we could do on this area. But let's be very transparent with you today. We have not found the key. So chemical and biological weeding on railway is the most efficient and also operationally viable solution today. So Graham, I don't know what you would like maybe to add on that topic.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we do need to have an integrated approach. The chemistry or chemical treatments not being our only solution for where vegetation is having a negative impact on the railway and safe operation of the railway. And yeah, like you mentioned, we are really keen and following the technologies that might be able to provide those alternatives for us. And once there is a viable solution that can be applied, then yeah, absolutely, we'll be looking to integrate into that solution. So yeah, there's, as Virginia mentioned, there is research ongoing, and I think we're all railway operations in Europe are very keen to realise those results of that research.
Thank you, Graham. Harry, a question for you now. How do you measure biodiversity in rangeland?
So yeah, well, I think I kind of answered that one already. Using a system of transects and quadrats. But Virginia, I do actually see another question up there about how we actually using remote sensing, and we have a very high resolution system that we're using. We currently using SuperDub satellite imagery from Planet. We're working with Satellytics, who has proprietary machine learning algorithms, and we develop very high resolution maps, mainly focused on cheatgrass infestations. At this point, the Bromus tectorum, but also working on the other invasive annual grasses. We actually can measure mesquite infestations as well. That's up and running. And we have beta versions for some of the other species. But the resolution we have allows us to identify these invasives at a pasture level. And then, with this high-res data, then you can decide where you want to make your treatments. There is other technology out there, for example, rangeland analysis platform. A lot of people use that. But the resolution of rangeland analysis platform is not sufficient to plan on a small pasture level basis. It's really good at looking at the regional perspective, but for planning and knowing where you treat on an individual pasture, you need much higher resolution imagery. So that's basically how we're approaching it today.
Okay. A question for you, Erica. How does application of Rejuvra influences grazing?
Yeah, and Harry may be able to add to this, but it all ties back to how the herbicide functions. But my understanding is that what we did is we gave a fair amount of time for the herbicide to be incorporated into the ground, and we really did not want to disturb that incorporation, and especially before we had rain to do that. And that was the recommendation that we got from NView on it. And we had great success in how it was incorporated. And so in future treatments, we will try the same strategy. But basically, we needed to give a window of time for one, it to be incorporated. And then two, as that response comes from the perennial bunch grasses, you really be careful with grazing so that the cattle don't overselect. And, when that other forage base is gone, perhaps, the cheatgrass, which they do graze as an invasive annual, if that were to be gone after the treatment, then they are going to be focused on the other grasses that are there. And so I think the priority in grazing management after treatment is to ensure that you're giving plenty of time for those perennials to really establish strong and deep roots, and to be able to expand out and cover that, the ground that the invasive annuals had previously covered. And so just being really, really cognizant of that. But the trade-off is that in the future, your forage base is so much stronger and ready to sustain more grazing than it could have before.
Yeah, no, if I could just add to that, from a grazing tolerance standpoint, there is no restriction on how soon you can graze after a Rejuvra application. It's 0 days, it's a 0-day grazing restriction. But we don't recommend that you graze immediately after the treatment because it's a pre-emergent herbicide that needs to reach the ground. And if you're grazing it right after treating it, then you'll be moving the herbicide around, and that can impact efficacy. So we like Erica was saying, we like to combine that the Rejuvra application with grazing. So if you're going to graze, if you're going to treat a pasture, it'll be really good to graze that early in the year to get rid of a lot of the biomass that helps the herbicide get to the ground. Then you treat the pasture, and then you don't want to graze it right away either because you want all those perennial plants to have adequate time to respond. So you may graze that acre that you treated late the following year as opposed to early to give it the maximum amount of time to respond. So every pasture is going to be different. If it's more degraded, you might have to wait 2 years to get the plants to respond. But that's how we would kind of integrate grazing and the herbicide application together.
Very good. We talked a lot about application on individual ranches on this RangeView plus Rejuvra. How do you see also this proceeding on public lands and large-scale projects? Erica, any idea how we could also use that?
Again, Harry might be able to have more insight into this, but I mean, our hope, because we do operate on public lands, that's the majority of the acres that are available to grazing in our area. It just is how it is in the West. And our hope would be that absolutely it is approved for use. My understanding is that it currently is not, because that process takes so long to work through. And so our hope is absolutely because, all this land is kind of checkerboarded and neighboring each other. And so if we are working to treat ground, you hope that collaboratively across ownership, you can do that. And that was actually, we were part of a project that was multiple landowners, and even some different agencies were involved in that. And I do believe that that's going to be the most effective way that this needs to be done at a regional scale. And strategically. So our hope is absolutely that it will be allowed to be used on public lands soon because they are facing the same issues that we are.
And I can just add to that. So, I mean, we already are used on a lot of public land, for example, county, city, open spaces. Fish and Wildlife uses the herbicides, it's exactly right. We do need big collaborative projects that go across boundaries, and so we're really interested in seeing people get together to target these invasives within a region and across boundaries. So the U.S. Forest Service and the BLM own most of the West and rangeland, so it's really important to get them on board. The Forest Service has already completed the human health and ecological risk assessment, so they can use the herbicides that are available. There are some limitations they still have. They have to have aerial application, environmental impact statements, and some of them have those, and some of them are working on them. So it's like a unit by unit basis. The BLM, the big one that owns large parts of the West, are actively currently working on a programmatic environmental impact statement, which we are told should be completed by the end of this year. And everybody's really looking forward to that, so that then they can be included in these cross-boundary targeting of the annual grasses. Even after they have that, each unit still has to do their own environmental assessment for every individual project. So it is quite a lengthy process, but we're definitely getting there, and there are massive opportunities for us to restore public land, federal land, and to prevent this continuing process of degradation to a state dominated by monocultures of exotic annuals.
Thank you, Harry. I can see another question. So how much chemistry do you save with the rail technology where you detect the weeds? Yes, the smart weeding system. I can take this one, as we have many field experiences across Europe, like in Germany, UK, Sweden. So generally, on average, it is 50% of the chemical savings of the herbicide controlling existing weeds. Of course, this depends on the weed infestation. The more weeds, the less product savings. But as you see, still, the saving is very significant. This is why most of European countries these days have really taken this technology to make operations on the field. So how much, do we have any other questions coming in? One more, maybe? So a question for Graham, specific to the UK. What does invasive species require as a management for the railway company?
I guess for me it's really important just to describe, I guess, our invasive problems that we have in the UK. They're very much based on non-native species that have been introduced to the UK and find the railway a very nice location to spread and grow, and they are predominantly Japanese knotweed and Himalayan balsam, and they can grow and infest significant portions of our railway quite rapidly, and then become quite a significant problem for us in terms of our requirements, if you like, to ensure that they don't spread onto other land. And most of those treatments of those particular invasive species are done manually through handheld equipment, but also can be treated by train-borne activities, but rarely, because they generally grow further away from the tracks than for train-borne applications, if you like, to be able to treat successfully. And of course, they need to, as Harry mentioned, they need to be. There's a really specific time of the year when they need to be treated to have the most effect. There are a few other things that we are concerned about, pests and diseases, and we're hoping that digital technologies can help us maybe track infestations of new pests and diseases that might affect or have significant health implications, particularly on trees and other important vegetation that we have on the line side. So yeah, those are the main concerns and the main activities that we're doing to either prevent spread or prevent or to track infestation is mainly done by our individuals going out to site and doing on spot applications.
Okay, thank you very much, Graham. Time is flying with you on these very interesting topics. We are coming now to the end of this session. So I would like to warmly thank Erica, Graham, and Harry for sharing with us your experience. Thank you as well to all of you in the audience for participating today and for your great questions. It was a great session. We are only at the beginning of what digital can do to help us all to control vegetation, to find a balance with nature. So stay tuned with Enview for a new live discussion very soon on LinkedIn to keep on advancing healthy environment for everyone and everywhere.